Football in England is usually tied to big cities, concrete, crowds, and busy skylines. But step away from the noise, and you'll find a different side of the game. Out in the countryside, hidden behind fields, rivers, and small market towns, there are stadiums that feel like secrets. In this video, we're exploring England's most unconventional countryside stadiums, far beyond the city lights. Let's dive right in. 20. The New Lawn. If you ever wanted to see what the future of football might look like, but set in one of the most peaceful corners of the English countryside, then you need to take a trip to the New Lawn. Home of Forest Green Rovers, this ground sits up in the Cotswolds, above the little town of Nailsworth in Gloucestershire. 19. Mill Farm. Heading north to Lancashire, we find another unconventional countryside stadium, Mill Farm, the home of AFC Fylde. This is one of the most modern non-league grounds in England, and yet it doesn't sit in a busy city at all. Instead, it's tucked away in the small town of Wesham, surrounded by the green fields of the Fylde countryside. 18. Causeway Lane. Tucked at the edge of the Peak District sits Causeway Lane, home of Matlock Town. If you ever wanted a ground that blends football with stunning countryside views, this is it. The stadium holds about 2,400, with around 500 seats, and has been the home of Matlock Town since 1912. The stadium has over a century of history, set against the backdrop of the Derbyshire Hills. 17. Silverlands. The tarmac Silverlands sits high up above Buxton, a proper hilltop ground. It's the highest football stadium in England at roughly 310 m above sea level. The club first started playing on the site back in the 1880s. The ground's recorded opening matches date to the 1880s, and the main stand was rebuilt in the 1960s. Today, the Silverlands holds about 4,000 people. 16. Park Hall. Built in the early 1990s and redeveloped several times since, it now meets UEFA Category 2 standards after recent renovations. The stadium's capacity was increased in the 2020s and now sits at around 3,000. Park Hall is unusual. It's an English stadium that hosts Wales' most successful club, the New Saints, because of the border quirks around Oswestry. 15. Cressing Road. Opened in the early 1920s, this stadium has that slow, interwar, non-league feel. The ground now holds about 4,222 people and mixes small seated stands with long terraces and uncovered ends. Braintree Town has called it home for decades. The ground name sometimes appears as the Rare Breed Meat Company Stadium for sponsorships, but locals still call it Cressing Road. 14. Impact Arena, North Street. Alfreton's ground, branded the Impact Arena for sponsorship, sits somewhere between an industrial small town and the open Derbyshire countryside. The stadium itself opened in the post-war era and today holds roughly 3,600 people, with around 1,500 seated. That mix gives it a balanced feel, comfortable for the club's average gates, but compact enough that the crowd feels close to the pitch. 13. Throstle Nest. This has been Farsley's base since the late 1940s and sits on the very edge of the village and farmland, west of Leeds. The ground has the feel of a place that grew piece by piece, stands added over decades and improvements when the club's fortunes allowed. The Nest location means you get an odd mix of commuter fans and local village regulars. 12. St. James's Park. Brackley's St. James Park is a tidy, well-kept small stadium that lives on the edge of a market town and feels like the town's front room. Built in the late 20th century and upgraded over time, the ground's not huge, but it's perfectly pitched for the club's status in the National League North. The stadium sits near residential streets and open green belts, and that gives match days a suburban countryside blend. 11. The Walks. If you want a ground that reads like local history, the Walks is it. Sitting inside a long-established public park in King's Lynn, the Walks was founded in the 19th century and has a listed feel to it. What's striking is the setting. The pitch sits within an 18th century park, so you get mature trees and long sight lines. 10. Signet Healthcare Stadium. When most people think of Somerset, they think of rolling hills, cider orchards, and cricket. Rugby has always had a strong foothold too, with Bath and Exeter not too far away. Football, on the other hand, has always fought for attention here. And yet, in the county town of Taunton, there's a ground that refuses to be ignored, the Signet Healthcare Stadium. 9. Ray Mack Stadium. Head south into Wiltshire, and you'll find the Ray Mack Stadium, officially known as the Raymond McKinhill Stadium. Salisbury City originally opened it in 1997, replacing the old Victoria Park ground. Today it's home to Salisbury FC, a Phoenix club formed in 2015 after financial collapse wiped out the old team. The stadium sits on the outskirts of Salisbury, surrounded by fields and greenery, with the spire of Salisbury Cathedral visible in the distance on clear days. 8. York Road. Officially recognized by the FA and the Guinness Book of Records, it's the oldest continuously used senior football ground in the world. Football has been played here since 1871. Think about that. The same year Aston Villa was founded, Maidenhead was already kicking off at York Road. Located in Maidenhead, Berkshire, the ground sits in a semi-rural town by the River Thames. 7. Westleigh Park. Built in 1982, it has grown alongside Havant and Waterlooville's rise from local football to national attention. It's not urban, but rather tucked away on the semi-rural edge of Havant. Trees and fields surround part of it, giving the impression of a ground hidden just out of sight. On match days, it suddenly bursts into life, filled with local fans and a strong community spirit. 6. Jubilee Stadium. Few stadiums in England are as open to the landscape as Evesham United's Jubilee Stadium. Built in 2006, it sits on the outskirts of the market town of Evesham in Worcestershire. Surrounded by open fields, the stadium feels completely detached from urban life. In the distance, you can catch sight of the Cotswold Escarpment. On windy days, the place can feel wild. 5. Latimer Park. Kettering Town is one of non-league football's most famous names. Since 2013, their home has been Latimer Park in Burton Latimer, a small town surrounded by Northamptonshire farmland. Surrounded by fields, it feels remote, even though it's close to Kettering Town itself. Fans talk about the rural walkways and the quiet atmosphere around the ground, broken only by matchday noise. 4. Bulpit Lane. If you want to see pure market town football, head to Hungerford and Bulpit Lane. Set in a quiet Berkshire town of just 6,000 people, Bulpit Lane is as rural as it gets in organized football. The ground is hemmed in by houses on one side and open land on the other. On a cold evening, the floodlights stand out against the dark countryside sky. 3. Croft Park. Head far north, and you'll find Croft Park in Blyth, Northumberland. Built in 1909, it has been home to Blyth Spartans for over a century. The stadium itself has that windswept, northern feel. It sits on the edge of town, with the North Sea not far away, and when the wind howls, Croft Park feels like one of the coldest grounds in the country. 2. Liberty Way. Liberty Way is tucked just beyond Nuneaton Town, in semi-rural Warwickshire. The ground is shared with Nuneaton Rugby Club, which adds to its semi-rural, multi-sport character. It's not a flashy stadium. It's practical and surrounded by open edges, giving it a countryside feel despite being near a decent-sized town. On match days, it can feel lively and loud, with fans creating noise that belies the size of the place. 1. Woodspring Stadium. Finally, down on the Somerset coast is the Woodspring Stadium, home of Weston-super-Mare AFC. Opened in 1983, it has a capacity of around 3,500, with 350 seats. What sets it apart is its location. Just outside the seaside town, the stadium is surrounded by open land and has a backdrop of big skies. On some days, you can even catch the salty breeze of the Bristol Channel drifting across. So there you have it, 20 of England's most unconventional countryside stadiums. They may not be the biggest, and they may not host the famous derbies, but each one tells a story you won't find in the city. These are the places where football feels raw, connected, and alive with local spirit. And if you enjoyed this trip beyond the big cities, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more stadium stories from across the football world.